Good evening, everyone. Greetings from Southmost Texas, a neighborhood of Brownsville, Texas. If you remember from, oh my god, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I made a video talking about the last remaining grove of Montezuma Cypress trees in the United States and why they were in jeopardy of dying. Back then, there was this community effort spearheaded by the local historian Eugene Fernandez. He was very concerned because cypress trees, they very much depend on a constant water supply in order to live. The Montezuma cypress tree is found all throughout Latin America. Very few of them actually exist north of the Rio Grande, but mostly in sparse, distant, individual quantities. What makes this particular site in Southmost special is the fact that you'll see 4 dozen of them all growing right in proximity to each other. The issue was that the City of Brownsville cut the water stream, the water supply in that particular, well, we call them resakas, Oxbow Lake. Because the trees weren't receiving water, it really jeopardized the future of those trees. Quite a few of them even started to die. They fell because they couldn't survive. The poor things died of thirst. 2 years ago, Mr. Fernandez, he led a public rally on that particular site where we will be visiting right now, to get the community aware and make us care about these gorgeous trees. It is a botanical, natural gem of Brownsville, of Southmost, of the Rio Grande Valley. Well, guess what? It worked. The City of Brownsville listened to Mr. Fernandez, listened to the public outcry, and they have redirected some water to grow, to flow to the Resaka, making these trees, I'm assuming, happy. 2 years later, here we are in the present. Mr. Fernandez is leading a second public rally, I guess more as a celebration of sorts, because we won. Brownsville won. Brownsville will get to keep its natural, gorgeous Montezuma Cypress grove. We'll be seeing him in a little bit. Let's see what he has to say.
360 video. So I got it.
Well, I got some.
Look at that. Look at all that water. Wow. Here is the tree in question. Here it says in English and Spanish the Nahuatl and indigenous lore behind the tree. Very fascinating. Okay. So right here is an example of one of the trees in question. Here is a beautiful Montezuma cypress tree.
I'm going to thank all of you for coming. This is not the last time that you're going to be here, by any means. If you haven't fallen in love with it, and if I don't fall in the river, you know, you're definitely going to have this as a part of your life, and that's what we intend to have happen. Let me start from the beginning of when I got involved. That's going on 13 years ago.
Wow.
I came out here and I interviewed, her name was Vitabel Jagu. Now, that's not Irish. At all. She was the widow of Dookie Jagu, who was one of the grandsons of the original fellow who had the plantation here. Celestine Jagu came out of the foothills of the Pyrenees. The Pyrenees Mountains separate Spain from France there, and he was a Frenchman that came into this part of the country at the time of the Civil War. After that, he started getting his money, and then he developed a an import of fine delectables, you know, like the hors d'oeuvres, like a deli downtown Brownsville. And he had a saloon that was attached to that. Getting off into 1869, that was when this was all raw land out here, hadn't been cleared. There literally were jaguars and pumas and lobos mexicanos, the whole thing in this area. It was that dense. So he settled in, and he had the type of a dream that I guess a lot of us would want to have, as to, wouldn't you want to have a Garden of Eden at your house? Like you go out in the morning and you pick a pear off of a tree, or grapes, and you know, and it was all there, you know. That's what he had right here. He is the father of agriculture for South Texas. Not only that, but he and Georges Brulé, which is another Frenchman, the Brulé sugar plantation up the way here, they figured out how to irrigate this South Texas land. He went ahead and developed the canal systems coming from the river and turned this particular spot of land into, as I say, a Garden of Eden. Sea Island cotton. He had sugar cane. He had like 11,000 banana plants. You know, these are what they call plátano burro, which is a bigger old world type form of plantain. And he had grapes. He had every conceivable type of a fruit you can imagine, Persian limes, key limes, and all of that. The origin of the citrus industry in the valley was not through John McAllen. It was through Celestine Gigoux. Okay. Now, you see all of these cypress trees, the big trees that are back over in here, dispersed throughout? These trees are a main feature of what we're trying to do in this part of the country. We're trying to take that cypress tree and repropagate it. Back at the time when the Spaniards first came up the river, Pineda and all that, 1519, they saw cypress trees that went all the way from the tree line, about 3 miles in from the mouth, all the way up to Roma. There were tens of thousands of cypress trees, these beautiful cypress trees. I think the closest one you can see is that one right there from here. They cut them all down. If you give a man a machete and a piece of land, he's going to cut everything down and turn it into a parking lot, right? That's what happened here. So the trees were cut down because that's what you get. You know, I learned this lesson early in my life. If you're too beautiful, you're going to have problems, right? Okay, because that was the only beautiful tree that was here that was suitable for lumber. Yeah. What are you going to make a house out of a mesquite? You know, there's not a straight spot on it. You know, ebony, peor, because you can't cut it with dynamite. So the cypresses were the ones that suffered. But Celestine Gigoux kept these cypresses here. The cypresses that you see along this stretch here, when I first came 13 years ago, there were 52 of them. Okay. Presently, there are 39. I'll tell you this story. Ooh. When I saw the bridge here, it was all decadent. It was all falling apart and everything. We redid it. I got a grant in order to redo it. But we had to evacuate that little trickle of water that was in the main stream here out of here so we could get down and do all of the engineering in order to make the bridge. So I thought, you know, when we were through the bridge, I said, okay, you know, bring the water back on. Okay, bring the water. Hey, where's the water? You know, for 8 years. Oh. Remember I mentioned there were 52 beautiful cypresses that were 200 to 300 years old? We lost 13 of them. Oh. In 7 to 8 years. So we finally got this thing going. That's one of the announcements that I'm going to make here. On February 2nd, my father's birthday, Groundhog Day, imagine that. There was an accord that was signed between PUB, the City of Brownsville, and the Corps of Engineers in order to go ahead with the refurbishing of this resaca. It's a $2 million project. You're going to see this also tie in with the hike and bike trail, which goes all the way up to Resaca del Palma, and for that matter goes up to Palo Alto National Battlefield. So that is coming together in such a full manner. And how many of y'all live out here in Southmost? Who lives out here in Southmost? Don't you all think you need a park out here? I mean, the pride of Southmost. I love it. I'm a historian. I knew all of the people. I knew all the players going back to the time it was first beginning. I spend more time out here than you could switch a stick at because I love the legend and the lore and the history of what Southmost has. So we're going to develop this park up in order to be something that the people from Southmost can be proud of. I was over at a friend's house just about 2 weeks ago, and who was at that same meeting? The national president of the American Butterfly Association. Did you put that together in your mind already?
Yes.
A butterfly reserve here? So that's what I'm going to present to the city as well. We can plant the what's called host plants and the nectar plants all along these banks, and so it could be another layer of beauty that will serve this park with the flowers, the hummingbirds, and the birds and all of that. All right, now here's the final feature that I'll tell you about. Is that I was talking to Farmer Dave over here with the community garden, and we were what you would call thinking outside the box, which you got to do from time to time. And I said to him, I said, okay, well look, I got the butterfly guy interested. Can you all propagate the nectar plants and all that, the little seedlings, and then we can, you know, you can follow that, and then we can plant them here because you got a nursery right here doing that. And then we expanded the conversation a step further. We said, hey, with all of that going on, now bearing in mind that there are so few cypress trees, Montezuma Cypress by the way, that are here on the Delta region, can you all propagate the little seedlings so we can stock the Rusacas in Brownsville with the cypress trees again? You see how this is growing? So therefore that's the plan as well to do on that. So there's many different parts of this, but they're all good. They're all coming together in a manner that's really going to serve the...
No! My battery died. My battery died in the middle of Eugene's spiel. No! Regardless, what we learned today combined with what we heard 2 years ago, link in the description, they cover most of the significance and the history of the Jagu Plantation, La Esperanza, the Montezuma Cypress Grove, however you want to call it. What I didn't film, what I didn't capture, was some of the really awesome trails. Oh my goodness. The trails going on at that site, even though they're very crude and basic, they're better suited for mountain bikes than for hiking as of now. Still, walking down them at around sunset, like I did today, it felt like I was in an exotic jungle. I have to go back there sometime this week.
I'm finally back. It's just around dusk. Let's check out some of the trails. I'm surprised. So far I've encountered maybe 12 or so hikers. But what really makes me happy is the fact that I'm hearing bird noises. There's birds surrounding us. 2 years ago, because there was no water, the only animals I heard were those that really depend on thick brush, like green jays and chachalacas and stuff like that. But now I'm hearing ducks, black-bellied whistling ducks especially. And the water is just going to bring much more creatures here. We found a clearing. Here is a great example of a glorious Montezuma cypress tree. Oh wow. I decided to take a quick break on sitting next to this 200, 300-year-old giant. It really is a gorgeous tree, Montezuma cypress. Not only that, I'm sitting right in front of the water, the 2-3 feet of water in front of me, and I'm reflecting on what it represents. Remember, all this started because one man saw the value of this site as an investment to the community. He noticed that the trees weren't receiving the attention that they deserved. He raised his voice. He got hundreds of people to back him up, and he enacted change. Shout out to Mr. Eugene Fernandez for making this possible. He also has all these wonderful ideas for the future of this place. He's seeing picnic tables, he's seeing a community center, bike routes that will connect with the Cara bike trail system that connects all Brownsville really and beyond. This place really is a natural treasure here. Not just for Brownsville or the RGV, but for America. Just the fact that we have these trees, the same as El Árbol del Tule in Mexico, all growing together here in Deep South Texas. No other spot in the country could claim that. It is a privilege to see this place being born as a community icon, a community gem. I can imagine taking my kids here, the grandkids here, and just showing them, hey, I was here when this passionate historian was rallying up the community to make this happen. We'll see what the future has in store for the Montezuma Cypress Grove. They're in the process of giving it a name. It'll either be called La Esperanza or La Posada Park. But it will be, down the line, there will be plenty of people taking their Instagram photos here, making YouTube videos about walking the trails. I'm assuming this is the first of many. I'm doing videos here before it was cool. Alright everyone, well, have a good one, take care, happy adventuring, make an impact on the community, and kick ass.